Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. Is Omaha really going through a renaissance? Is the entire state experiencing a renaissance? Or maybe the word that's a better word is transformation. Is that really happening? Because some people think it is. Some people say, no big deal, it's just a gradual evolution. We've been heading this direction for a long time, everything's cool. It's really maybe not so cool, and here to help me understand that and talk about that is my good friend, Mr. Penrod over here. How are you, Kevin?
Good, Lynn.
Good.
Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure to have you here, Kevin Penrod from Mass Mutual here in the Omaha area.
Yeah.
Been out there 16 years, 17 years?
Well, I've been in the financial industry 30 years.
30 years. Yeah. You didn't have to say that, by the way. I
There's my pitch.
We'll get back to that. You'll get that opportunity for sure. Hey, let's talk a little bit about Omaha. You have a distinctive and a unique perspective on the city, and the city, you know, has definitely improved, I think, but there are a lot of statistics that are a little concerning. And I'd like you to kind of elaborate on what's your position about how we are doing here in the Omaha, Nebraska area, standing out, attracting talent, attracting companies. You know, where do you think we're at?
Omaha has an inferiority complex.
Yeah, I've heard this before. That's a very astute psychological observation. I think you're right.
One of the things I told you when we first met, I said, look, I believe that I do have an objective, unique viewpoint because I didn't grow up here.
Yeah.
I am not from Nebraska.
And there's power in an outside perspective.
If
you've been somewhere else, you see it differently.
You know that people do things differently somewhere else.
Absolutely.
I came to Omaha from Seattle.
Yes.
I'm from the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
I first landed in this town in 1984 as a television reporter for Channel 7.
Right.
Eventually got kicked up to the major leagues. I was working for the CBS affiliate in Seattle.
Yes.
Back where I was from and grew up.
I see.
And then 4 years after that, I decided, you know, I've had it with the television business. I wanted to retire and start my financial firm. And I decided to start it here.
Come right back here.
Why? Well, you know, like the famous bank robber said, you know, why do you rob banks? He says, that's where the money is. And when people ask me, I said, look, if you wanted to start a financial firm, go where the money is, and there's a lot of wealth in Omaha.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But my perspective comes from the West Coast. That's where I grew up in a very progressive part of the country, and progressive is not a dirty word.
No, it's absolutely not.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. And when I left the Midwest and went to San Antonio, I went through the similar transformation, a little different, but then I went to Dallas, then I lived in Los Angeles for a while, then I lived up in San Francisco when the great earthquake, 7.2, occurred in 1989.
Right in the middle of the World Series.
Exactly, in October.
Famous photograph, ball player carrying his kid.
Oh, I'll never forget it. And then back to LA, and then finally back to Omaha. So I did really see the city through a different lens after all that experience.
And that is important. And you've asked me, hey, Kev, what do you think? And I say, the inferiority complex thing. But what I really think is that Omaha is a really terrific and really easy place to live.
Yeah.
But that being said,
yes,
that is not enough to attract and retain the kind of young talent that we need. You know, and getting young people with the smarts and the know-how and the drive to come here and do what it is that makes them successful.
Yes.
It's kind of like a shark. You know, a shark's got to move through the water to get air to pass through and water to pass through its gills.
I love this metaphor.
If it stops moving, it starts dying.
Yeah.
And the brain drain issue is the issue.
It is the issue.
And it's not going away.
Yeah.
And if Omaha can't solve that, Omaha will start dying. It's grim, folks, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true. And the entire state suffers from the same scenario, and even worse, frankly. But there's a tendency to believe when you get to central and western Nebraska that that's really not important. We're not worried about those people back here. The problem is they don't have a plan B. There's no alternative to, they're not growing their communities either. they're trying to get workers of any sort, much less young professionals. So they have an accelerated problem, but of course Omaha is struggling right now with certain things. The riverfront revitalization, what do you think about that? Is it a good thing to you, or is it just a beginning? What's your thoughts about that very quickly?
It's more of same. And they actually paid someone to come up with the title, The Riverfront.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I thought, you got to be kidding me, man. Somebody got $50,000 or $100,000 or maybe more to come up with that brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Now, I'm distracting you right now in the middle of your show because I'm up here with the Omaha World Herald, the Sunday edition, and I'm flapping around looking at it. I'm not trying to be
This is a
very
very I appreciate you bringing it up.
This is a great article on the front page of the paper. It's, core of city making a comeback. And this is all great news because it just proves that more and more people, ostensibly younger people, are moving into the center of the city and they want to come downtown. But I thought, and we were talking about this before the cameras rolled, the statistic in this World Herald story, which I think is excellent, that just jumped off the page at me was this one.
It really says the picture, doesn't it?
In 1963, there were 48,000 jobs located in downtown Omaha's core, but only 27,000 parking spots. Today, there are 27,000 jobs, but there are 43,000 parking spaces.
Excessive parking.
Well, and I've got people that I acquaint myself with all over this city. And knowing that, there are still people that I know who live, say, for example, in the far western suburbs of this city who will say, well, I don't want to go downtown because there's no place to park.
Yeah.
That is one of the fundamental things that's wrong with this city.
Yeah, that's really because as John Gottschalk said this, after he left the operational head, CEO of the World Herald, he said in a different context, if your downtown doesn't grow and develop and evolve, he says, quote, it's problematic, all right? It creates problems for the entire community. So you're absolutely correct. But now, and by the way, before we move into the next phase of this discussion, I want to tell you that I've had some very interesting talks with officials here in the city, as I'm visiting with them and inviting them to have lunch, and I'm sharing ideas with them, which you know a little bit about. And here's what they say to me. They say, we're concerned that people are fleeing for the suburbs. They're nervous about safety. Crime is a big issue in Chicago, Kansas City, and the downtown areas and so on. It comes up all the time. And we're constantly seeing people talking about getting the heck out of the core just for purely safety reasons. So the very next day this article appears in the World Herald, I thought that was so coincidental.
I think a lot of people are dominated by their parochial or provincial thinking.
Yes.
So what they've heard repeated again and again and again in the past becomes a knee-jerk reaction for the present and the future. Do we really have a crime problem in Omaha? No. Do we have a traffic problem in Omaha? Folks, absolutely not. You ought to go live in Seattle, Washington, or Chicago, Illinois. Then you'll really learn about bad traffic.
Sure.
And don't even get me started on LA.
Well, let's keep going. This is a great conversation. We're going to come up to the halftime of the show here in a minute. We'll continue on here with Kevin Penrod. He's a great commentator and very helpful. Let's talk specifically now about downtown, and let's talk about North Omaha and or Northeast Omaha. Do you feel like we're growing in those areas, North and Northeast? What do you think's going on right there? And are those areas taking on greater strategic value? Or are we going in the right direction there? Or should we start over? What are your thoughts about that? I'm dying to hear this.
Yes, no, maybe. I told you I landed in this city in 1984 as a television reporter for Channel 7.
Right.
Spent 5 years covering news here, which gives you a very honest and brutal perspective on what's really happening in the city. And I don't see a whole lot of change.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, and this is my opinion, which is open to interpretation, but we're all entitled to it.
Right.
Not a lot has changed from that fundamental difficulty that we encountered in 1984.
Yeah.
That's a third of a century. More needs to have been done or changed in a third of a century. That's just my
I would so agree. Now, there are people that would say, well, there have been changes. 75 North is there, the CHI Health Center there on 24th Street, you know, a few of these institutions have been placed there, you know, and they're trying to obviously serve the community. The learning center is there, the learning community. So there is some stuff going on. I don't know why 75 North was positioned where it is. It's a coffee shop that nobody can afford coffee in a particular trading area. That seems a little non-strategic, if you know what I'm saying. But nevertheless, it just seems odd that the perception is we've improved when the rest of the city's like, do something.
Yeah.
Huh? Now, I'm going to tell you something. We are discussing an alternative scenario for that. Yeah? Now, I don't know if it'll go anywhere. It's actually fascinating to figure out what the process is. Who's moving the chess pieces, you know? It could be the municipal planning department, right? I mean, they're right in the middle of it. If they have a plan, by the way, they'd rather keep the plan, whatever it is, than adjust it constantly when somebody has a new idea.
It's always the private sector, Lynn. Come on.
Well,
money talks, BS walks, and it's in the private sector where the power lies. And if the private sector wants something to happen, by God, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right about that, and that's why we are also talking to developers and so on about an idea. And I'd like to reserve a little bit of the time after our break to discuss that idea with you, if you don't mind.
Cool.
I think we have a really fascinating idea. People are looking at it and going, I've never seen or heard anything like this before. Continue. That's definitely not a validation exactly, but there is curiosity and interest in what we're going to suggest to the city here fairly soon. And we're going to do it in a variety of ways. We found a young African American. I think he's a true leader to the core. He's stepping up and saying, Lynn, let's partner right now and let's go into North Omaha and set up forums. Let's explain your plan, your vision for this area. Let's get down to the grassroots and see what people have to say about it.
I hope it's capitalized.
Well,
it's the capital that always makes things really happen.
But I think if we can get some popular support, it'll be easier to attract the capital. And we're talking about developers. We're certainly talking to developers as well. So we'll see, how that all goes down. But I appreciate it so much, Kevin Penrod with Mass Mutual. Tell our audience one more time before I go into the halftime break, a little bit about your practice and what you do, how you serve, how you create value.
I'm an investment advisor representative. I'm not a financial planner. I am an investment advisor representative. And my real métier, my bailiwick, my specialty is helping people who have worked all their lives and now they've got $500,000 or $750,000 or $1 million and now they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I help them ensure that they're going to get paychecks for the rest of their lives.
Sure.
And that's what I do.
Is it a matter of protecting them against insecurity? Because if you have that kind of money, you're not really insecure. You know you're going to be fine. It's really then a matter of just how do we optimize it and leverage it, right? Is that true?
And protect it.
Yeah.
And protect it.
Yeah.
Because once you get to 65 or 67, and maybe you've got 7 figures in your portfolio, what's foremost in your mind is, I sure as heck don't want to lose it now.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. I'm sure you have an opinion about this kind of this chapter in American politics that we're going through because taxes they were at 38, now they're 21, maybe 28. I mean, who knows, corporate taxes, all that. Do you find yourself in the middle of that dialogue or not really so much?
Absolutely smack dab in the middle. But
Okay.
Maybe you should book me for the next 25 episodes.
Okay, to have a conversation
we
about
could go on forever about that.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being with me. We'll be right back with Kevin Penrod, and my name is Lynn Hinderrocker, and you're on WowBiz Nebraska, obviously. And we're going to tell you what this show is brought to you by. The sponsor of this particular show is a consulting firm here in the Omaha, Nebraska area called Growth Dynamics. Growth Dynamics Consulting is a very unusual organization, not the kind of company you're going to find everywhere, by the way. Let me give you the email address, or excuse me, the website address quickly, and then I'll tell you kind of what this deal is all about. So it's Growth Dynamics, DYNAMIX.org, all right, .org. So that'll get you right to the website. And you'll see right there, right off the bat, all the dimensions or aspects of growth, different ways to think about growth. And we are all about growth at Growth Dynamics. So 3 different aspects or 3 different dimensions, and this is not the way it's supposed to be done, by the way. We work with medium-sized companies, all right? That's the segment that we operate with primarily in terms of our consulting. Typically research, strategic planning, business development, and organizational development. Now, this is something I've discovered over the last 25 years. If we can develop a new brand, cool messaging, great ads, et cetera, that's really great. But on the other hand, if the employees and the internal leadership, if they don't get it, understand it, buy into it all the way, it's just a thin veneer. It doesn't really wear very long. So we have to work on the internal culture at the same time that we're working on a new marketing message. So that's that. Then we work with communities, helping them envision what they must become to attract these young professionals we discussed earlier in the show. It's a fascinating thing, facilitating discussions between mayors and city councils and helping people come together around a new opportunity, a new future for them. And then thirdly, we do some very deep personal growth work with executives who, by the way, are the loneliest people on earth. If they're running a company with a lot of employees, they have a lot of decisions to make, things are coming at them from 17 directions, nobody really understands what they're going through internally. They don't know how to make decisions. They're afraid of themselves, by the way. It's really a fascinating dynamic. Most leaders need somebody who can listen and empathize with them and help them work through some very difficult emotional and mental issues as they're guiding companies forward. So it's a very interesting and very unusual consulting firm that works in those three realms. Check them out, growthdynamics.org, and you'll make sure that you'll be working with somebody who has a broad skill set and a broad perspective. That's Growth Dynamics Consulting in the Omaha area. All right. Was that 3 minutes? I think it was about 3 minutes.
Yeah,
Something
180 seconds.
Something close to that.
Most people don't understand how long 3 minutes is. That was a pretty long
It
pitch
can seem like, but I have to tell you, on the other hand, when I'm having fun with somebody like yourself, we're talking about a topic that's really engaging, this show flies by. And I suddenly realize, I look at the clock at the studio here, and it's like, I got to wrap this up in 2 minutes. And it's really, that's a challenge in itself. How do you take all these opinions and statistics and interesting points of view and say, well, we did this, we thought about that, we came up with this, thanks a lot, goodbye. Which is what you really have to do. Anyway, Kevin Penrod, thank you for being on WowBiz Nebraska with me. And we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to talk about leadership, but we're going to continue this conversation briefly right now, all right? Can we do that? Let me bounce this idea off of you, and I want you to kind of shoot holes in it or give me some ideas about it, okay?
Sure.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah.
All right. So I've chatted with you a little bit about urban naturalism. Urban natural people are kind of the 50 million of them. They comprise 38% of our population. These are the young professionals we want to have come into our city, but also urban natural architecture, which is high contrast buildings with wood and metal, wood and glass, et cetera, kind of high contrast. This is the kind of building, whether it's a home or an office, that these people that we've been discussing are attracted to.
The creative class.
The creative class, but we don't use that. We call them urban naturals anymore, but they were the creative class. I mean, that was the.
That's a 90s phrase.
It's kind of a.
I'm dating myself.
It's a 2002 phrase.
I'm 62 years old, so there you go.
Yeah, you know it all. Like we have a span behind us, and that's good. Anyway, so we're looking at that, and they're also really into diversity, all right, and really into the arts, sustainability, et cetera. So we think that kind of architecture should be developed in north and northeast, all the way over to east, we'll say 16th and Cumming. We'll say 24th and Cumming, and start right there at Cumming and move north from that area. And build these dense, Austin, think about that kind of an environment. We're talking now about multi-story, multi-use buildings that have the facade I've just discussed, and then promoting with a great deal of precision, utilizing obviously the incredible digital tools that are available, and reaching out 500 miles around the area, saying there's a new urban natural area in Omaha. Come, be here, because we get you. We know this is developed for you. Now, is that a pitch or is that not a pitch?
You ever seen the 1972 Robert Redford movie, The Candidate?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he blows up his whole candidacy in the televised debate with the old GOP guy. And so I'm about to blow your program up, just like Robert Redford.
Yeah.
I'm going to read from this multi-page screed that I sent in 2.5 years ago to the Omaha World Herald's editorial board.
You go right ahead.
And in it, I wrote, back in 2019,
yeah.
In my opinion, if given the choice between A, and we're talking about the city of Omaha.
Yeah.
If given the choice between A, constructing a gleaming, groundbreaking project which sets new heights for creativity and design,
Yeah.
drawing the envy of the nation, if not the world, focusing attention on Omaha like never before with cost and effort requisite with such a project,
Yeah.
i.e. big and expensive, or option B, constructing something square, gray, concrete, and cheap, Omaha will always choose B. Why? Because it's easy and cheap instead of expensive and hard. Now that's my opinion, and that's kind of hard to take sometimes. But from my view of this city is Omaha has always taken that route because it's cheap and easy, does not draw criticism, remains under the radar, where by being bold, and no one leading this city has ever been accused of being bold, you avoid criticism. Now, you want to talk about leadership, too.
I do indeed.
Teddy Roosevelt, one of the greatest presidents, one of the greatest presidents this republic has ever had,
Yes.
lived by the motto, take action. That's a Teddy Rooseveltism. Aping that, mirroring that.
Yes.
One, leaders have a vision.
Yes.
Good, effective leaders are visionary.
Yes.
But the best leaders can make their vision understood to the people.
Convey the vision.
That's leadership.
Yeah.
And frankly, you know, when she was first voted into office, I was kind of critical of Mayor Stothert, and one of my associates kept referring to her as Mean Jean. But I have to tell you, my attitude about Mayor Stothert has changed entirely. She's been very effective. However, that being said, I quite honestly think that we need another visionary leader such as Hal Daub. That man had a vision. He was visionary, probably still is, yet Hal was ineffective in getting his vision understood and embraced by everybody else.
I think that's very astute observation. I heard something that underscores what you just shared with me, which is that this particular person was writing this said, there's no evidence that a mayor or even a governor has to be visionary. What they really are, in fact, are janitors, custodians, maintenance people who put out holes, you know, move lines across, get things going forward. But he said nobody ever votes them out because they don't have a vision that they can convey. They only just want to know whether the police got a raise or the pothole got filled. So it's really the public's fault. They don't insist on a vision, and they just want their immediate problem solved in the short term.
A visionary leader that we have in this city right now is Rachel Jacobson, who's now in a position of control at Heritage Services. And make no mistake about it, folks, that organization has its finger not on the pulse of the city, but on the bags of money. And she is a visionary leader. Look at what she did with film streams. And I think that that's a person that politically should be taking a role. But, you know, I don't want to hammer on this too hard, but we're talking about raising the W. Dale Clark Library and building a new central library. Hey, this is your opportunity.
Right.
Build something, the envy of the world, a gleaming architectural gem in what? Omaha?
Yeah. Yeah, especially because reading in itself and books in and of themselves are they're in limbo.
It should be a cathedral of learning, a cathedral.
Right. And people should be getting immediate rewards and recognition for reading. And I actually think that the business community should have series of meetings, unending meetings, discussing the latest books, having somebody facilitate them, being tested, certified. This becomes just a dynamite, powerful learning center.
I hope they make me a liar, though. Let's check back in 5 years. In 5 years, I bet they will have built a gray, square...
Yet another building. And do pretty much the same thing they're doing now.
Because it was what? Cheap and easy.
I think the key thing is efficiency. They're going for efficiency versus effectiveness. And by the way, effectiveness is always preceded by creativity. well, creativity is all over the place, and who knows, and this is good, but maybe that's not. But there's no way you can be effective in anything without being creative first. And that makes people nervous, efficient. It's much more efficient.
Change always makes people nervous, Lynn.
Much easier to do. So
you and I were both young guys once. Back in the 20th century.
I remember when I was the punk in the room.
But
right?
let's face it, young people like stuff that's cool.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And if you're not cool, young people are going, I'm going to go someplace that's cool.
Yeah. And that's
really, the bottom line.
It blows, officials and civic activists, it just blows them away.
This is not rocket science.
Right. But then they say, well, who's going to determine what's cool? My wife? I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Cool is expensive.
Yes. Well, I tell you what, Kevin, this has been a great show. I appreciate your contribution. It's unique, and I must say I agree with 99% of everything you said, so thank you so much.
You bet.
One final comment. You've had quite a career. Tell us what you think, encapsulate, I'm talking 30 seconds now, what you think the primary quality or principle or that you have to know and remember and practice that kind of help you become a mature, confident leader going forward in this era. What have you learned? Distill it down into a couple words if you could.
Listen.
Okay.
Talk less, listen more. Okay. But also try to see where improvements can be made, and if you can get a little creative, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I believe, I'm going to wrap this thing up, I believe Omaha lacks a central progressive intent. That's not a good thing or a bad thing, it's just something that the city, I believe, lacks.
Yeah, it's an observation that you make, but it's very interesting.
And if a visionary leader could say, look, we need to be just as creative and just as progressive as Austin or Minneapolis or Denver, and we can.
Yes.
I'm going to drag you with me.
Right. It's the mindset. Is really what it comes down to. All right, Kevin, thank you so much. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker in WowBiz, Nebraska. See us next time. It's a great show, and you'll learn. Bring your notes, bring your friends, bring your sales reps, get them in the room, listen to WowBiz Nebraska. Next time, maybe we'll catch Kevin Penrod yet again. And by the way, Bruce Arendt, our good buddy and commentator, he's laid up right now. Bruce, we miss you. Heal up. We'll see you soon as well. Thank you so much. Talk to you again.